Hi, everybody. I'm Laurie Davis, and you're listening to The Laurie Davis Show. Now, the Dr. Laurie Davis Show, I can officially say. And we are coming to you live this afternoon from Alberta, Canada. We're streaming live right now on Self Worth the Missing Link Superstars Facebook page. We're streaming live on e360tv.com and also on YouTube. Laurie Davis show host, The Laurie Davis Show. And I went in there the other day because I had always, I'd forgotten about it. And my gosh, there's radio shows in there from like 2000 and gosh knows when. So, anyway, welcome today. I'm so excited to welcome my guest, Virginia Clarke, empowerment facilitator, mom, parenting expert. Oh, there's so much about Virginia that I want you to know. And I don't know, Virginia, if an hour is going to cut it or not. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Laurie. I'm glad to be here.
Well, the first thing I want to talk to you about is what is it you're doing now? And I'm looking at your beautiful wall. And this is a representation of not only what you're doing now, but what you've done and what you've accomplished. So let's go to you now to talk about where you are right now in your journey and some of your ambitions and dreams. And over to you.
Thank you, Laurie. I am a mother of one. He's 16, will be 17 in July. I am been married with my husband for 22 years now. I work part-time with persons with disabilities, and I am an empowerment facilitator. I have been in the healthcare and early childhood education field now for over 20 years, just stepping into my empowerment facilitator role in the last couple of years of that journey. So I am so excited to be here.
Great. Well, why don't you share with us what are some of those certificates on the wall? Can you just, not all of them, but just
Sure.
the highlighted ones?
Sure. They range from 2000 to 2022. I was trained as an emergency medical responder back in 2000. I moved into long-term care after that. So I have a few certificates, medication delivery, stuff like that. I moved on from long-term care into early childhood education. I am a childhood assistant, level 1. I have that certificate. I have our triple P parenting program. Trauma informed care is a universal program. And moving on to the middle part is with the persons with disabilities with the action group. I work there, a lot of those certificates. And then moving on to the last few you see are through the Self-Worth the Missing Link workshops that I've completed.
Wow. Now I'm getting some feedback. I'm
Hmm.
not sure why. Can you see where you can mute yourself if I talk? That might break down the feedback. Well, it seems to be okay right now. But don't forget to unmute yourself, and I'll do the same when you're talking. We're just getting a little some kind of feedback here today. So today, Virginia and I are going to present to you some information about something that she and I are working on and have been working on for a while. Because in the throes of her journey, there was an addictions issue, and we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, look who's here to support us and visit us, the beautiful Joan Wakeland from Menifee, California. Good afternoon, Joan. And yes, a well accomplished lady and team member, and you know her well. So, Joan, thank you so much for being here. Joan is an author, a speaker. She's written a book called Run for Freedom, which is her journey, her escape, if you will, from Jamaica in 1979 with 50 bucks and her son, and who was in her country a licensed pharmacist. But we know what it's like when people come to a different country. Sometimes they don't get acknowledged for their credentials or for what they have accomplished. So thank you, Joan, for being here and putting up a comment. Awesome. So over to you, Virginia, sharing your accomplishments. We're so honored to have you on the team because it supports us in really having a credible person to be able to connect with our clients who are either, are clean and sober, or they're struggling with their addictions and they relapse and maybe are looking for a way to get past that. So let's talk a little bit about what happened for you and the background, the family, and how you ended up using alcohol as your soother, the way for you to cope with things. So I'm just going to turn the mic over to you.
Thanks, Laurie. I grew up in an alcoholic home. Alcohol was a big part of my life. I've been drinking since I was probably 16 years of age, heavily throughout my younger life into my 20s. I met my husband the year I turned 25. And actually, the only time that I did not drink in my life was when I was pregnant with our son. Up until then, I drank all the time. It was just natural to do something, that I grew up with. It was part of my life. My final straw, or my rock bottom, shall we say, came in January of 2020. I found out at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, I was losing my 10-year career as an early childhood educator due to government cuts. And I spiraled. I spiraled out of control. I was drinking all the time. The last straw, the final straw, rock bottom, came. I was at my mom's house. We were having a family gathering, and I just kept drinking. I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop, to be honest. And what was told to me, because my habit when I drank too much is blacking out, that I was belligerent to my husband. I was calling my son names. I get really loud. I can get mean. I get nasty. So when I got home, I got sick all over the place. So my then 14-year-old son is watching his mother throw up all over the bathroom, and him and my husband had to clean me up. How embarrassing. I swore my whole life I would never do something like that to him. Never. That's how I grew up. And no, I broke my promise. The biggest promise that I made, I broke that. And that was it. I knew I had to stop. When I woke up in the bathtub the next morning, and it was clear. That was it. I couldn't do this anymore. I had to quit. I had to be a better role model for my son. I had to be a better wife, a better mother, and I had to be better for myself. I had to love myself. This is a destructive path to be on. Even though you think, oh, I'm just going to have one drink, two drinks. One drink, two drinks leads to 4 drinks, 5 drinks. And then that was January 27th, 26th, 27th, 2020. And that was it. I have not had a drink since that day. Today, I am 1,149 days sober. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Now, let's talk about you made the decision.
Mhm.
It was a decision, right?
It was a decision. Absolutely.
And then you acted upon that decision. So what are some things you've done to get clean, to stay clean? Because I don't think you went to detox.
No.
I don't know that part of your story. So over to you to just share a little bit about that process of once you made that decision and you took action. Over to you.
First thing I did was actually just empty out any alcohol I had in my house. Any bottles that were open, I dumped. Anything that was closed, I gave it away. That was the first action. The second thing I did, I started down a health and wellness journey for my body, just to get my body healthy again. And it was on that journey actually that I met Laurie. And I fell in love with the self-worth vision, world well-being, and knew that in order for me to stay sober, I had to be healthy in mind and body. And that's where Laurie steps in with the self-worth, the missing link products. They help you stay healthy. They help you heal from those past traumas, heal from those things, those reasons why you take that drink in the first place, or, those reasons why you go down that destructive path. So without the self-worth products coming in to my life, I don't think I would have been able to maintain sobriety. I lost my dad 11 months ago and went through a difficult time with that. I lost all last year. I lost a grandparent, a grandmother, a good family, two good family friends. So last year was a really trying year for me. And I truly believe that if I had not done the work, the self-worth work, the retreats to get healthy in my mind as well as healthy in my body, I would not be where I am today.
Wow. Well, that's quite the testimony, my girl.
I'm
Thank you.
living proof.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. So let's talk a little bit about relapse. What is it like? Those deaths would have been a perfectly good reason for the average bear to relapse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you use alcohol to soothe the soul, numb the pain, whatever we use, some of us use shopping,
Yeah.
some of us use drugs, some of us use control, some of us we have to shower 3 times a day and clean the house 4 times a day. We all pick our poison, so to speak. Would you agree with
Absolutely.
that?
I do agree with that. Some are just more socially acceptable. Um, I mean, cleaning your house 14 times a day, nobody would think twice about that unless they know different, right? Unless you know that the perfectionism, the need to control things, the need to feel better through shopping, through eating, um, those are all underlying issues. There's underlying issues there that make you feel that need to, that addiction. It is an addiction. It's it's those underlying issues that you need to work on to understand why do I do this? Why do I, decide, oh, I'm going to have a drink today, or I'm going to put 15 things in my cart, and then, yeah, it's that addiction. It's that little thing in your head that won't shut off, that little destructive part. It doesn't matter what your addiction is. It's still unhealthy.
Exactly. So I'm just going to put you on mute for a minute because when you're not on mute, I'm getting this little bit of feedback. Okay.
Sure.
So we know in our world, years ago, alcoholism, being a drug addict, these were labeled as diseases. But there's a new wave of thinking, and we knew this a long time ago. I know that those poisons that we choose are a way for us to react, soothe the soul, get numb so we don't have to feel the pain. And now you'll hear current people saying, well, if somebody's on drugs, they must have had a childhood trauma. You think? Well, we knew that 30 years ago, and we started working on that 30 years ago because it's the why. It's the why. And once we figure out the why, whether we learned it growing up, because we grew up in an alcoholic home, my dad's all 9 siblings drank. The girls could drink the men under the table. But in my grandparents' home, there was no alcohol. So they didn't learn that from there. But they came home from school one day and their mom was laying dead in the kitchen floor. And she left a whole house full of teenagers and they all reacted to that. This is 1936 we're talking. Prohibition years. So I've always believed that our addictions are a reaction to a trauma or something that we've experienced that we're not able to deal with or cope with. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, Laurie. In my house, it was normal for that to happen. But when you grow up with an alcoholic parent, there's trauma involved in that.
Yes.
Depending on what happened in your home, abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, psychological abuse, all of those are abuse. They may not leave, psychological or mental abuse may not leave physical marks on the outside, but it does on the inside. So in order to go on, you make that decision. I've had people say to me, they don't understand how I was able to accomplish all this with the way I was raised. I know now my parents did the best they could. I absolutely do not have any hard feelings against my mother or my father at all. I have made peace because my decision is my decision. I made that. My mom and dad didn't say you had to drink. Absolutely not. That was my decision solely. My decision to start again, my decision to stop, my decision to have 14, 15, a bottle, 4 or 5 bottles of wine, whatever it was at the time, that was my decision. Nobody made that decision for me. And I had to make that decision to quit. I had to make that decision to become sober and figure out how to stay sober and stay healthy for myself, for my son, and for my husband, because the path I was on wasn't going to get me there. So absolutely, I completely agree. That decision is made. Maybe you need help? Then reach out. Reach out for help. I watched my father go through AA twice. I watched him try and detox on his own at home numerous times. And it's without that self-worth component added to it, you're not going to get healthy. You can quit drinking, but if you do not deal with those things that caused that trauma in the first place and made you go down that path to choose it, then you are not going to stay sober. You have to have that self-worth. You have to know that you are worth it, that you are lovable, that you are powerful. It's so important because without that, we cannot stay clean. We cannot stay sober. We cannot get past the things we need to get past to carry on.
So would it be safe to say, I'll get you to mute there again. Would it be safe to say, all right, we're on the same page and that we agree addictions across the board are a reaction to trauma, intergenerational trauma, ways to soothe the soul. So if I make the statement, I'm going to make a statement and then I'll get you to feedback. I say to people, when we are in love with who we are, when we really authentically love ourselves, we would never do anything to hurt ourselves. And addictions are a big way to hurt ourselves. So is suicide. So is perfectionism. So is control. So is all these things that we think we need to have in our life in order to feel good about ourselves. When in fact, the only thing we really need to feel good about ourselves is ourselves, because we came with everything that we need. So, what are your thoughts on that in terms of just knowing that if I love who I am, I'm not going to hurt myself?
That makes perfect sense, Laurie. If you love yourself and you love who you are as a person, why would you do those things to hurt yourself? Absolutely. That makes perfect sense to me. It's that lack of love, that lack of, it doesn't matter, I don't matter. That's what hurts you. You have to have that self-love, you have to have that self-worth, that self-compassion. Be compassionate for yourself. If you've been through a horrible childhood or any type of trauma, you have to be compassionate with yourself, and you have to work with yourself to get past it so you can be healthy. If you're not healthy in your mind, it doesn't matter if you're healthy in your body. One affects the other. It
So
does.
if you were to say that again and make it about you, I, me, why, I. So when I was unhealthy in my mind, can you recall when you were unhealthy in your mind?
I was unhealthy in my mind for most of my life.
Oh, whoa,
Yeah.
That's powerful. Hmm. Hmm. Exactly.
And I didn't know it.
Well, there we go. Let's talk about that. Why didn't we know it? Why didn't you know that?
If that if the thought process is never went through your mind about, you know what, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. You have to first realize there's something wrong. If you think that there's nothing wrong with you, or nothing wrong with what's going on in your world, and you're still, you know, drinking, doing drugs, a control freak, a perfectionist, you need to step back and take another look, because there is something wrong. And if you don't realize that there's something wrong, you're not going to be able to change that. We we have to be healthy in our mind in order to be healthy everywhere. If our mind is not healthy, like I said, it won't matter if your body's healthy. If we don't understand that our mind is unhealthy, if we don't understand that those traumas we went through as a child, those traumas that we went through even as adults, and it can be anything, does not have to be growing up in an alcoholic home. You could have been in a horrible car accident as a person. That's a trauma. And the way that we react to them, that's the important part. If we are healthy in our mind, we have those tools to go on and say, I can get through this. I can get through this. I'm healthy, I'm lovable. I've got this. That's what we need to say to ourselves. When we talk
So,
negative to ourselves,
mhm.
yeah, it's that negative talk. And when we, especially as a parent, and especially as a parent of a teen, everything you say, you have to watch. Everything you say. Even that negative talk, that, complaining about this or complaining about that, it's not healthy. That's not healthy for you, it's not healthy for your family, it's not healthy for your children. One of my son's biggest fears is, I'll drink again. And I have to show him that I am strong enough and I am powerful enough and I am healthy, and I can make that promise to him and keep it and say, no, that will never happen. Because I'm confident in my abilities and I'm confident in my mental state. I know that'll never happen again.
Mhm. So let's talk a little
So,
bit. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I love the I story. Let's talk a little bit about the parenting aspect, because when we have alcohol in our homes, which I grew up with, I had two beautiful parents. One loved drinking and one didn't touch it at all. So I grew up with a mixed message. Is it okay to drink or is it not okay to drink? And in some ways, that's more confusing. That was more confusing to me. My mom never touched it, my dad loved it. So we had a lot of chaotic times around it because eventually the alcohol or the addiction controls the environment. So things like not being able to have a birthday party on a Friday night, or not being able to have your friends over because I was afraid of what might happen. So let's talk a bit about the impact, even if just one person in the family is drinking or drugging. And you've touched on it already, but let's talk about how that really affects our kids. And you've shared, thank you for sharing openly about your son, Matt, and how that,
Mhm.
what he had to deal with. But now you're working on helping him to heal as well. So that's a good thing. But over to you. Anything, any words you'd like to share with our parents out there? Because we are going to talk about our parenting program as well. And a retreat that you and I have put together. So over to you, Virginia, to talk about that environment. And you've done a lot of work in the parenting business. So over to you.
Yes. As a parent, we have to be the role model for our children. And if they see us on at the slightest stress in our life, drinking, that does not give them the tools that they need to deal with stress. So as a parent, we we have to be the role model. We have to be the ones to show them that there's a better way. There's a better way to deal with stress. There's a better way to deal with anger. There's a better way to deal with anything that goes on in your life. And that is through self-worth, self-love, self-compassion, self-care. All those things are important for our children going ahead to prove to them that there is a way. There's a way to get through this. There's a way to deal with bullies. There's a way to deal with, that lack of self-confidence. If they see us lacking that self-confidence, that doesn't give them the tool to have confidence. Like, absolute opposite. They are like sponges. They soak up everything that we do. So going forward, I never hid my drinking from my son. I never hid my he never, his grandfather, he knew his grandfather drank too. So it was always that open conversation. How are we going to deal with this now? And he's open with me about me now and being sober and his fears that that's going to happen again. As a child, when you are going through that, there's no stability, there's no security, there's no safety. And those are things that are so important as a child. They need that. They don't need your friendship. They need your parenting. They need you healthy. They need you happy. They need you on top of things because they are children and that is their job. That is their only job. They are not our parents. They are not our friends. That is our job. We are the parent, and we have to be healthy in mind, body, and spirit in order to help them grow and be the best that they can be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that comes in the packages, that inattentiveness that we're talking about. I had a friend who was a huge, suffered intensely with migraine headaches. And she had 4 kids. And she spent, 4 of the 7 days a week in bed. And the kids were bringing themselves up. There was no addiction involved per se, but the sickness became the addiction. That need to be under the covers and not facing life. That's another form of an addiction, to create some kind of medical situation that takes us out. What are your thoughts on that?
That makes perfect sense, Laurie. It's if something is not right with you internally, you have to get help. Whether it's whether it's programs like our workshops, you have to get help. There is help. There is a reason if you have uh, health issues. There's an underlying reason for that. That's proven. They know that. If there's something going on health-wise, there's something's underlying, something's going on, there's conditions. Reach out, get help. That's what you have to do. You have to take that step to, one, you have to want to be healthy. That was my first thought was, I have to be healthy. And when I quit drinking, within months, even my thyroid levels leveled out. So seeing that number level out and become manageable was a big thing. I knew I was on the right track, and that just gave me more motive to stay on that track. So if you know there's something going on, you have to get help. It is the same thing. If your children do not have their parents, they're not children. They need to be children. That is their job. That is their only job. They should not have to be taking care of us as parents.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little more about some things that we have on the horizon that we're working on, you and I. And one of them, of course, is where you're presently being trained up in one of our most recent products, which is called Worthy Indigenous Parenting for All Children.
Okay.
And we have collaborated with our good friend, Gloria Gray Eyes, to put together an authentic, traditional parenting workshops based on the 10 virtues. So let's talk about the 10 virtues. And by the way, in case our viewers don't know this, we did not rehearse this interview. This conversation is totally off the cuff because we don't do rehearsals. We just go with it as things come up. So let's talk a little bit about the 10 virtues and how they apply to all of us. Over to you.
The 10 virtues, it's a beautiful thing to bring into all parenting aspects, because we all want our children to have those virtues. Right off the top of my head, they just flew away.
That's okay, but things like honesty,
Yes,
integrity,
integrity,
love.
stuff like that. Those are things that we, well, us, for one, as parents, should strive for, to work in those virtues as well. And by doing that, we can teach those virtues to our children, and they will excel. They will excel in all areas of their life with just following those virtues.
So, would it be safe to say that if I don't have any self-confidence, chances are my kids don't either?
Yes.
Or if I'm a liar and I'm dishonest, chances are they are,
Mhm.
right? You know what rolls downhill.
Absolutely. And it doesn't smell pretty.
No, it doesn't smell pretty.
No.
And our kids, a lot of parents don't want to think that their kids are a reflection of them, but at the same time, how could they be anything but that?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's one of our projects, and we're going tomorrow into weekend workshop number 7 out of 10. We're so excited about
Yes.
it because our clients are loving it. And the next piece was you and I decided to develop something for people who are either struggling in addictions, have been clean and sober, but would like to stay that way. And so we came up with H.E.A.R, H-E-A-R. Over to you, Virginia, and why you're excited about that.
Healthy, empowering addictions recovery. Because without that empowering aspect of addiction recovery, you won't stay. You won't stay recovered. Plain and simple. Without that empowerment piece, that self-worth piece, which a lot of our systems are lacking these days, um, that's the key. That person needs to go out in the world and know that they've got those self-worth tools with them to be able to handle any situation that comes their way. and to be able to say, I've got this. I've got the control that I need to take care of this, and I can stay sober. I can stay clean. I can stay, within that, eat healthy, shopping, any of those addictions that we talk about. We kind of focus on drugs and alcohol, the main addiction, in because it's one that ruins our families. It's the one with high death rates, life loss, with addictions, with alcohol and drug addictions.
Mhm.
So those are the ones we focus on. And we need to have that empowerment aspect along with that recovery aspect to stay healthy mind, body, spirit. That's our goal. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy spirit.
So was there a particular reason that you chose not to go to detox, or let's say a support group, or what's your thought? What was your thought process around that at the time when you made your decision to become clean and sober?
Honestly, sheer stubbornness. I'm as stubborn as they come. I'll be honest. I'm going to be completely honest. I also seen, again, my dad went through, I believe, AA twice for sure, that in my life that I recall. And he always relapsed. Always. It didn't matter. He'd do his steps. He'd apologize. He did whatever had to be done. He was clean and sober for a while. And then one thing, and he's back. He's back on that, off that wagon. So for me, it was one, I broke the promise. I broke the promise that I made, and I had to fix that. It was my responsibility. And two, I knew that I could do it. I knew that I could do it because I had to. I didn't have a choice. It was either get sober and stay sober, or lose everything that I have worked so hard for.
Oh, that's powerful. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat
Yeah,
that?
yeah, absolutely. It was either get sober and stay sober, or lose everything I have worked so hard for.
Whoa, that's empowering.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is the lady who is going to support me with our retreats coming up. We have 4 beds, and we're going to start taking 4 people at a time to come and spend 3 or 4 days with us, be treated like a princess or be treated like a prince
Okay.
in the process. Because one of the things that I've learned or heard or been to see, I've had lots and lots of clients who were addicts and tried many, many ways to become clean and sober. But the one thing that didn't happen, maybe they got rid of the alcohol or they got rid of the drugs, but they didn't get rid of the bad behaviors that went along with that role as an addict. What do you know about that? What can you tell us about that?
If you get rid of your alcohol, get rid of your drugs, great, fine. But if you're walking back into that situation that put you there in the first place, you won't succeed. Your situation has to change. You have, or we have to be willing to change our situation when we are in that situation. We have to want more. We have to work for more. We have to want that. We cannot go back into that bad situation or those bad behaviors and expect different results. Because we're gonna go right down that same pathway, and we are going to end up at rock bottom again, and here the cycle starts again, and the circle starts again.
So we've already alluded to this, but let's share with our viewers some of those situational changes that you made. You mentioned you emptied the bottles, you
Mm-hmm.
started working on getting healthy physically.
Mm-hmm.
is there anything specific in your home that you changed because you were in that same environment?
Me, myself and I had to change me. Um, my mentality, my thought process, my past had to be dealt with in order for me to be able to move forward.
Mhm,
I was the cause of my problems. In my reality, in my home, I was the cause of my problems.
mhm,
My past, not dealing with my past, not even understanding that I needed to deal with my past was my situation. That's what needed to change for me. My husband and my family, absolutely everyone behind me on my decision to get sober and stay sober. And nobody to this day even questions. They know. So what had to change was my thought process, my habits, my mentality, my me. That was the situation that had to change for me. Was me. Yeah.
and to
And
love
if I did
yourself
not,
enough.
exactly, if I did not meet Laurie when I met Laurie and did not do the work, that's the key. Do the work on myself to understand that I am worthy. I am worthy of everything. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of everything that comes my way, everything good in my life. I'm worthy. I'm worthy of, I'm worthy of my family. I'm worthy of my son. That was the big thing. I want him to look at me and know that he can trust what he sees in front of him. That's what has to change. When he looked at me before, there was no trust. He couldn't trust that. It was unstable. It was scary. I could be scary. So that my situation, that's what had to change, was that self-love, self-confidence, that self-care, self-empowerment, to understand that I'm not being selfish because I'm taking care of myself. I'm I'm becoming empowered. I'm becoming the woman that I'm meant to be, not the shell of a person I was.
Mhm. Excellent. I'll just put you on mute because that just brings up a story that I want to share with our viewers today. Years ago, I needed a website and I hired this guy because I had seen his work. It was amazing. And so I made an appointment to go see him, and I would be going to his office. And when I arrived, it was this apartment building in not a very good part of town, and I was actually a little bit scared. But anyway, I got out and I went in, and he was in this little tiny apartment, and he was on welfare. But he said to me, but highly creative, highly bright, everything, had lost everything, lost his family, lost his kids, lost his beautiful home. But he hadn't had a drink in 25 years. And, but he was still living like he was still drinking. This is where I get that. He hadn't made any progress past getting rid of the alcohol. So I said, "What are you doing living in a place like this? You could be like a millionaire with the work you do." Well, he said, "I'm an alcoholic, and it's been 25 years now and I haven't had a drink." And I said, "Well, I'm more of an alcoholic than you are." And anyway, I said, "Well, how old were you when you started drinking?" And he said, "My goodness, Laurie, nobody's ever asked me that question." He said, "Let me think. I guess it was about 13." I said, "Well, what happened when you were 13? What was going on?" And all of it, and he was a big guy. All of a sudden, the tears start coming and he's crying. And I said, "I didn't mean to upset you." He said, "No, that's okay." because I've been in counseling, I've been in therapy, I've been in support groups, I've been in detox 3 times. Nobody ever asked me that question. How old were you? And he said, nobody's ever asked me. The second question is, what is going on for you? And he said, oh my gosh, do you know that my mom passed away when I was 13? Mm-hmm. So all those years of drinking and trying to stay clean, and nobody had ever asked those 2 questions. So those are our first 2 questions, right, Virginia, that we will ask every one of our clients. Because if you don't know why you're doing that, you cannot fix it or heal from it. Would you like to expand on that?
Yes. Yes. If you don't, and that's what I say, if you as a person who is going down this road and you and want help, what happened? Exactly. If you don't know what happened, how are you supposed to fix it? If you know what happened and choose not to fix it, that's different. But if you've never been asked that and you have been going through what that gentleman went through, our system is broken. Our system is broken if it's not asking you those questions. Because how are we supposed to heal if we don't know what we're healing from or what is causing our grief? How do you heal?
You don't.
You can't. You don't. Exactly. And by going through our retreat, reclaiming our self-worth retreat, those questions are asked. Those, you are made to think about it, and we are made to look back at ourselves and and answer those hard questions and find out why. You know what the beautiful thing is that there's nothing wrong with me. There was never anything wrong with me. There were things that happened to me, but there was never anything wrong with me. And understanding that and learning that is the most powerful thing that you can do. Yes, you're going to have situations. Yes, you are going to have difficult times. But guess what? If you know where you come from and you and have done the work and have those tools, you are going to, whatever, it's just another situation. I've got this. That's what you need to do. You need, those hard questions have to be asked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, we're winding down. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I just want to share with our viewers how honored I am that you were willing to come today and share your story with us, be vulnerable, and put that out there so that when we bring our clients in, I've always been very big on credibility. So I had addictions, but they were different. My addictions were perfectionism, looking good, putting myself out there to convince people that I was a good person. I spent a lot of energy getting approval. I kept a perfect home. I cooked perfect meals. If you were coming to dinner, it would take me 3 weeks to get ready. Really? And so it took a very smart woman, because I said to her, well, I never touched alcohol till I was 35. I don't have any addictions. And she said, are you kidding me? You're full of addictions. But I didn't know what they were. I'm like you. I was in denial because I thought, well, I'm not an addict. And then I went, wow, I was a big time addict. And that perfectionism and the energy and the money that cost me, I could have spent less on crack and cocaine. I'm serious. And always had to have the best of everything and blah, blah, blah. So addictions come in many packages, I guess, is what I want to say. The most obvious, like you said, are alcohol and drugs. If I see a guy on the street shooting drugs up his arm, that's not socially acceptable. But looking pretty is socially acceptable. And I've got the eyebrows and the lashes and the nails and the this and the that. That's all very addictive. So just want to say, addictions come in many packages. Man, I was even addicted to people. Talk about that love triangle. You can be addicted to some guy or some gal or, yeah. So that's why we call our workshop Here. We hear you. H-E-A-R. We're here to hear you. Healthy, empowering addictions recovery, understanding the big picture. And we all have addictions if we were to get honest for a few minutes and get our head out of our butt and come out of denial. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Virginia. And Virginia, I just am really excited to hear what are some main things that you want to say to people, especially our guests who are going to be coming to our retreat. And when we work online with our parents, over to you. I'm so honored to have you on that team.
Thank you.
A few important things that you would be saying.
Mm-hmm. The first thing I would say to parents out there, for number one, you can do it. You can. We as a team work together, and we can succeed at anything. As parents, we can succeed at anything we put our mind to, and we can do it. I keep a visual vision board on my door as a constant reminder. If I make that decision to have one drink, that is what I can lose. All of my dreams and all of my goals. And I don't want to lose those. I've worked hard for those. And we have to want to do the work to stay healthy, to stay happy, for our children, for ourselves, um, in order to stay on, to keep going. We have to break those generational curses. We have to break that generational trauma. We have to stand up and first step it out. Call someone, talk to someone. Just take that first step, because you can do it. We can do it. That's the first thing I would say. Absolutely.
Totally. Oh, thank you
Yeah.
for that.
And
So, go
our
ahead.
children are worth it.
Oh,
Our children are worth it. Our children are worth having a healthy parent. And we need to keep that in mind.
mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
If we feel like we can't do it for ourselves, we have little people that look up to us. We have
Mhm.
people that rely on us. We have to take care of ourselves, and we have to take that first step.
And then look what happens when we choose to do it, not have to do it. If we have to do it, we might never, right? But you chose
Yes.
that.
Right.
You chose your sobriety.
I chose. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I
There's a
made that
lot of,
decision.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
But I made that decision for myself first. I had to want to be healthy. And
Mhm.
once you're healthy, it just snowballs down. Your family sees that. Your family sees that powerful person you're becoming, and can trust that person, and are excited to see that person, not scared to see that person. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much to my very special guest today, Virginia Clarke. And we are broadcasting to you live today. We're also going to be live tomorrow. I have a beautiful show fan of mine. Her name is Liz O'Neill, and she will be here because she's recently written a book about the sex trade. And hers is a fictional novel about some Native American girls who were abducted into the sex trade. And I can't wait to hear from Liz. She's an author, she's retired, but she's still working away at our issues that need to be talked about. So please join me tomorrow as we have a conversation with Liz O'Neill. I believe she lives in Connecticut. She's on the East Coast. And Joan put up a comment too about she uses vision boards to keep us focused, and the children's eyes are watching, and adults need to be careful, right? We need to be careful. So, once again, Virginia, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you being here and putting out some information that we need to get out there. So, please share the show. That's the only thing we ask. This is all totally volunteer. We don't make money on the show. We haven't any sponsors, as you can see. We just take care of this ourselves. And so please share the show to get these important messages out so that others know that they're not alone in the world. So I'm Laurie Davis signing off, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow. Bye for now, Virginia.
Thank you, Laurie.
Okay.